I love it. We're starting to see a real world example, which is what we needed so desperately, right? Of a giant economy such as this one's in reference to Spain that is functioning, not just functioning, not just completely functioning, but actually having robust growth economically, absent having an actual government in place. Imagine that. This, all the bullshit where, hey, move to Somalia. Well, I guess now Spain will be the new the new term being thrown around. But in reality, Spain would be a pretty cool place to move into, right? Although I'm not under any false belief that a government may not form at some point in time in the future. But right now, we're talking almost a year has gone by with no government, no established government in Spain, yet their economy is growing faster than most other developed countries in Europe. Imagine that. Headline from the Wall Street Journal. Why is Spain's economy expanding so robustly without a government? Consumer spending and exports have remained strong, but economists expect growth to slow in 2017. Yeah, but they're economists, so who gives a fuck what they say? Because they're always wrong for the most part, or predominantly, right? Madrid, Spain's robust economic expansion is defying concerns that a political impasse, now in its 9th month with no end in sight, would tarnish one of Europe's economic bright spots. But the pillars that have sustained Spain's recovery from recession are showing signs of strain, and economists expect growth to slow in 2017, in part because political uncertainty is putting a damper on some kind of investment. Some kinds of investment, yeah, maybe the crony kinds, but not hampering or hindering the regular people at all, right? Matter of fact, not having central planners control, dictate their lives, and plunder them even more, it's probably feeling pretty good, right, for the regular person. The Spanish economy grew 0.8% in the second quarter, driven by consumer spending and exports. The country's statistics agency said Thursday. The uptick is in line with first quarter growth and better than the 0.7 the agency had predicted in July. The Eurozone's fourth largest economy is on track to expand around 3% this year, outpacing the International Monetary Fund's projections for France, Germany, and the U.S., right? So France, Germany, and the U.S. Spain's economy is growing more robustly than France, Germany, and the United States. Think about that. Yet they have no functioning government right now. Ooh, shocking revelations. Oh, that narrative is going to really put a damper on the central planners and control freaks, isn't it? That narrative is going to put a damper on them trying to say that you need government without government, right? Well, this Spanish experiment's working out pretty good, and I think it's going to show the rest of the world at least somewhat that, yeah, this bullshit concept that you need thieves, dictators, control freaks, sociopaths that want to plunder and dictate your life. Guess what? You can get through life without them. Imagine that. Shocking revelations, right? And actually do quite well. Spain has been without a full-fledged government since December. Doubts about who will form the next one have persisted since the divided parliament elected that month failed to install a prime minister and was dissolved. A new parliament elected in June is also deadlocked among four major parties, none close to a majority. Mariano Rajoy, the conservative leader who was elected during the recession in 2011 and has overseen 3 years of recovery, remains in office as acting prime minister, but with no power to propagate or to propose legislation or spend on new projects. Parliament next week is expected to reject his bid for a second term as head of minority government, creating the possibility of yet another general election. So even that, keep it going, Spain. Hey, matter of fact, if you can get a few years in without any government at all, that would be a great social experiment to prove to the rest of the world that, hey, guess what? Right? Resilient. Spain's healthy growth rate has remained steady since the deadlocked December election left the country without a government. That's showing Spain's GDP quarter-to-quarter change. So yeah, they're doing pretty good. And like was already stated, better than France, Germany, and the United States. So not bad for not having a government, right? And that's just with a completely messed up. There's probably still people in there that believe they should have government. Like I say, this can be expanded in the modern age of information and the skills, talents, and technologies available to us. Yeah, the fact that people still believe you need central planning or governments is like trying to suggest that you need pharaohs and dictators and monarchs too, right? Well, no, you know that actually if you remove those mystical entities from the equation and give people real freedom, hey, economically and socially they're much freer, much more prosperous. Despite the uncertainty, Spaniards are spending more this year than last, buoyed by growth in jobs and wages. Imagine that. A global drop in oil prices has left the country's consumers with some extra cash. Oh yeah, and oil prices, right. Negative interest rates have pushed down the monthly cost of many borrowers' mortgages in Spain, where the majority of home loans are variable rate, meaning they fluctuate with changes in benchmark rates. Yields on government bonds have fallen to less than 1% as investors remain optimistic about Spain's economy, and the European Central Bank buys sovereign debt to try to boost growth and lift inflation in the region. Parliament passed a 2016 budget that locked in government spending before last December's inconclusive election. Spain is on autopilot from the fiscal standpoint, says Daniel Antonucci, a Morgan Stanley economist. But in 2017, Spain must trim spending to meet budget deficit targets set out by the European Union. Once the government is elected, Spain will tighten the belt. The question mark is to what degree, and that also depends on political situation. So I mean, basically, if you look at it, and like I say, this is not the end all be all. It's just one small example, or a fairly big example. Spain's a fairly good sized country with a hefty population, but either way, it's at least one example that you're seeing that yes. And even people like myself, I would never suggest that you're ever going to convert people from their belief in the mysticism of statism, considering it's been hammered and pounded into almost the overwhelming majority of the masses in any geographical landmass. This is something that's going to take a while to unwind. But my biggest thing is, can we at least start getting towards that ultimate goal, which is to be free of force, subjugation, and theft and coercion, the modern forms of slavery that is representative of having a government, of a central planner, of forced subjugation. Let's at least start heading in that direction. Gridlock, right? Making sure that nobody has the ability to write more laws or legislate more acts that will impede your freedoms and liberties. That's the most important thing. Ultimately, our ultimate goal, obviously, is to eliminate mystical central forces and collectivism, forced subjugation, human slavery, completely. And I know that's going to take time, but like I say, let's at least start trying to head in that direction. And we're starting to see that there are at least some small semblance or examples around the world where at least it's proven tacitly, not conclusively as of yet, but at least there's some proof that's being shown that yes, you do not need a ruler. You don't need a ruling class of people to be prosperous economically or free socially. That's just the truth of the matter. That's something that most people should understand, but because of the indoctrination that's instilled and forced into us by our peers, educators, professionals throughout our entire lives, we're raised to believe that we need these central planners, these rulers, for us to sustain our livelihoods, right? When we all know instinctively, deep down inside, that's not true at all. It's Canadian Libertarian, and I love liberty.